video about the Snyder Trilogy of DC films, the unfinished one. And this is kind of an addendum to videos I've already made. I made one about, I'm not sure if I made one in Man of Steel a while ago, and I made one about the actual theatrical release of the Batman v Superman, and I made a video about the Snyder cut of Justice League and the Two Idiots. But I'm not bringing them all together, especially if I have a chance to actually watch them again from a distance. And now they've moved on from this, and it's going to be a different type of Superman, different type of Batman. There's never been a new Batman film come out, so things have moved on from this iteration. So you can actually see it now, and not review it as like, I don't really want this to be the future of these films, which I really was not happy with at the time, because it was like, I wasn't very happy with the idea of a depressed Superman. I just thought, you're missing the point of Superman. But now, actually just watching them from a distance, like, I can be distant from them. So this will not be that long a video, because I don't think I have that much to say that's new. But I watched them projected so I could see them on a bigger screen, just to see the scope of them. And I appreciate them a lot more. Now, Zack Snyder's still a director with who's lots of peaks and valleys. I mean, Sucker Punch is still a pile of crap, Watchmen is still a very flawed film. His zombie films have been pretty decent. Dawn of the Dead remake and Army of the Dead, which is stupid but enjoyable. He's a director who's into his thing. You either like it or you don't like it. I don't think his films have that much intellectual heft to them. But this is the ones he's most ambitious with, is these DC films. And I enjoyed them a lot more because when I rewatched them pretty much together, I watched them over a week basically, so you had a couple of days between each film. And I enjoyed them a lot more because you could just see these were kind of big operatic films that weren't really about ideas, or just about a big emotional thing. And they're just more enjoyable because they are trying to be like just these big operas, really. That's the big thing I came away from. Is like, the films are just trying to be old school myth. They're taking the mythical elements of DC stuff, and that's it. They're not taking the Superman to be like the bastion of hope. It's like a character who's struggling with the idea of being bastion of hope. That's the idea. And it goes on through the films as he's first comes to Earth. He's not sure of himself. So each element of Superman would not be in like 10 minutes of story. He gets a whole film in these ones. So it's a character who's trying to find himself, making mistakes, moving on, makes horrible mistakes, and end up Man of Steel, where he has to fight his own people and save the world. The second film is about the fallout from that, as people actually question the idea of this Superman character. Was like, yeah, you try to help us, but you destroyed Metropolis against your own people, and you've got all these sort of, you can do whatever you want, and that's the problem. And then he dies, of course, and comes back in the third one, and he fights with all these other big superheroes to defeat the invasion from another world. So it's just big and operatic. That's all it is. You have Batman who's burnt out and he's trying to defend himself to protect the world against Superman. So you have Superman, and then seeing his mistake, and then suddenly realising he has to defend the Earth against other invaders. You have a Wonder Woman basically coming in and after hiding away for 100 years has to help them join everyone together to fight these monsters. You've got Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg. So you've got a bunch of types, really. But it's enjoyably done if you actually just take away any of your preconceptions of what you want these characters to be, and just take it this as an individual taking the characters, its own universe. Your Batman can be whatever Batman you like in other universes, but this is the take on it. And it just works for what it is. But it is like really long films. They are, Zack Snyder never saw a slow motion shot he didn't love. There's there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that in a traditional film would feel self-indulgent because of the style of what Zack Snyder's doing. It actually feels right because it's a little bit emotional, melodramatic emotion of these characters and the fights are taking place. So, so if you see it in a whole, it actually works a lot better than it did individually. So individually, these films tend to feel kind of unsatisfying as leading from A to B because partially because they've almost been built to get to the next point, the next point, the next point, as if they're a comic book basically. So they are basically like Fritz Langian 20s Mabuse films where they're meant to be epic, they're meant to take forever to watch. They're meant to be a bit humorless, you know. And when some of the humour doesn't work, they say that thing to it is like a monotone thing to the feel of them that you just have to go along with, really. You have to just get used to that. It's a big melodramatic opera. You know, where these people are not normal people. These are just big myths trying to save the world from other myths. That's all it is. It's based on an old myth tale. It's very Germanic. And you just have to accept it. So, I mean, the end of Man of Steel feels very unsatisfying on itself when you don't know what's coming next. It feels like, wow, that's excessive. I mean, they really trashed that place. But if you know you're watching something that's part one of a longer story, you just watch and think, well, that's pretty excessive, but I know where it's going. So it works better that way once you know where it's going. But it's still kind of a... It's not a film about small people, small lives. They try and hint at that's important, but it doesn't really matter ultimately. No one cares. It's all about these characters and their connections to each other. They're like Clark Kent is a mother's boy who bonds with these women. These are very important to him. And the big threat throughout the films is if they die, he will go mental because he's a bit odd. Which is a strange thing to put in Superman to make him be that, you know, fragile, really. They can't take tragedy very well. But it's interesting if you actually separate him from the Superman and just say this is a character, this is a versus Superman. It's like, well, that's an interesting threat. It's like he's generally a good guy, but there's weak spots that villains can exploit to make him an absolute menace to everybody. And the people who are trying to save and protect him have to be aware of that because they know they can come back and haunt him. So it's like, okay, this is a Terrican Superman. That's interesting. I like the take with Superman's a lot more of a figure of hope for people, but this darker figure in itself is quite enjoyable. Henry Cavill knows how to play it. He understands the character he's playing. He doesn't get to choose any charm at any time, but he understands the character he's playing, this fragile Superman. Well, that's interesting in itself in a kind of operatic thing. Batman being a lunatic who's completely burnt out and has to try and refine his humanity is interesting. Take Ben Affleck's a really good Batman. He understands the character. He's very grumpy at times. He's kind of crazy. And then he slowly has to rebuild himself to be a leader of these people, these desperate people who need some sort of leadership. He has to sort of take that on. And so it's an interesting arc he has. And he's an interesting Batman. So it's like, yeah, you can see that as an interesting take in a character that's different from what's come before. Wonder Woman always tends to work with Gal Gadot. She understands the character, so you put her in anything, it tends to work. Even some of the Wonder Woman 84, which some people didn't like, a lot of people didn't like, she was still good in it. The plot of the Lex Luthor thing in the second film got some confusion, but when I actually watched it this time, I understood a lot easier. Cause I did watch the longer version of the second film because it makes a lot more sense, and it's a film that should have been released in the first place. There's so much of the problems people had with that film was due to the fact that certain scenes were cut that actually made sense of what was going on, like basic stuff, basic story beats that suddenly looked really obscure and weird without the context. So basically, the plot becomes much more simple as The second one, Lex Luthor is trying to destroy Superman, and he has multiple plans that come into effect when the last one falls down. So the first thread is he makes Superman look compromised in a foreign country trying to save Lois Lane. So he buddies all that so there's an investigation. Then he sets Batman against him, and his idea there is once the investigation has paid off and he blows up the thing and Superman's tainted, he has him fight Batman for reasons no one in the world will understand or care about, and kill Batman basically, or Batman kills him. You know, the whole idea is to taint him so badly after that no one will trust him. And then, if that goes wrong, which it does because Batman and Superman actually make up, he has this other plan he comes up with much later on, which when he gets access to the ship, he realises he can create this mutation of Zod that he'll bring into effect if the other two plans don't work. So it's not like a big plan of interlaced things. It's just like there's these 2 or 3 plans that are going together, but each one gets triggered when another one. So the first 2 plans is make Superman look bad internationally and Batman v Superman are the 2 big plans. And the third plan is if all that fails, we'll throw this at him to kill him. You know, which the last plan is stupid and the last plan is desperate and it's a sign of madness because Luthor, in this one, in the longer version, you realise he's mad. He literally is. He's been driven mad by fear of Superman and he's going a bit crazy, the same way Batman has. So it's like a case of these crazies fighting each other and Superman being a symptom of all the problems. Which makes more sense in the longer version when you actually watch it all together. The third one works better as well. The third one's the best of the 3 because it's got other characters that are interestingly different from the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman dynamic, where because Superman's a bit depressed, Batman's always depressed, and Wonder Woman is a loner. So you get the Flash, who's much better in this version, who's just a human character who's just trying to survive in this world that's, you know, very kind of alienating to him. And he can't quite. He's trying to deal with a father who's in jail for something he didn't do, and he's just trying to get make a living in a world that he doesn't quite connect with. Then you've got Aquaman, who's also disconnected from the world. He's disconnected from his own people underwater and disconnected from the world, so he's trying to make sense of it. And you've got Cyborg, who's a cyborg who was blown up and has to reform himself and has to connect with people. But these 3 characters, even though they're disconnected, they are younger, they do have a view of the world that's more adaptable, would be optimistic. So they become a kind of, despite certain bits of grumpiness, they become a much more enthusiastic form to help these other heroes to defeat the villains. And they're basically the 2 characters who actually win the war is ultimately Flash and Cyborg. I mean, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman are basically the soldiers to fight the enemies, but these are the 2 who actually have to do it. So there's that kind of element that actually really works there. There's a sense of a bigger world. Again, it's a big operatic world of these people with operatic gifts, so you get some wonderful stuff like the Flash's speed, where he goes so fast the time comes backwards, which is wonderful. Any Flash scene is great in this film, especially when he's going really fast because he gets great effects. And it does something better than what Marvel have managed to do with their speed guys, because the speed guys, even when you look at Days of Future Past, ultimately it's a gimmick joke thing. And this one is more emotional, tied to what he's seen, and it just works better. And Aquaman works better because he's just this moody guy who just is a slow build. The whole film's a slow build. It's things happening simultaneously and it's slowly building towards the end. But again, the Zack Snyder thing is he needs a lot of room. He needs long running times to get stuff, and there's a thing that goes through will never be finished is the sense of this arc of these possible futures of Superman going bad and Darkseid coming and this sense of doom throughout the world. They're fighting one battle, then to go into the next battle, then to the next battle, and the final battle would be against Darkseid, but we never get to. Which is a shame. I mean, you can hope that they actually just do a comic version of this to finish the story off, so we at least see who the story is, but who knows. But I'm trying not to go too long here. It's like, you can look at my other videos and see my take on this individually. But it is a better satisfying experience from a distance, seeing them all together, unfinished, but at least just seeing the kind of arc that's a take on these characters that goes with other takes like the Justice League cartoon from the 2000s, which is wonderful, or the Nolan stuff, or the Burton stuff, or this new Matt Reeves thing, or the Christopher Reeve thing, or the one and only Superman Returns arc. See, there's lots of different versions of Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman you can look at. This is another one now. So it's easier to access to enjoy it without thinking, I hope this is not the future for the next 20 years. Which is always, I think, the big problem with the Zack Snyderverse was that people who like the optimistic ones thinking, I don't want this for 20 years, I want something fun. I think that kind of was a backlash against it, which caused its problems. So, I think it was just complicated with just this version of this myth that wasn't for everybody. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back soon with some more videos, but that's me for now. So I'll see you later.